Hello and welcome back to the Cash vs. Trash podcast with your hosts Rob and
Demi, where we take the highest and lowest grossing movies of each year from 1970 to 2021 picked at random, then decide if they deserve the title of either cash or trash.
And this week we are starting off 1996 with part 1, Independence Day, also known as ID4 for some reason.
Yep, highest grossing movie of 1996.
Came out, I want to say on July 4th. I can't believe we haven't looked into that. Looked into everything else but the actual release date. But I do have some background facts about stuff to do with the title and Independence Day itself. And, well, not so much Independence Day itself, but why maybe the studio wasn't keen on it. But anyway, we'll get right into it. Obviously, most people have probably seen this movie in cinemas or DVD or VHS or, God forbid, Laserdisc. It's streaming now. We watched it on Star.
Disney Plus.
Yes, Disney Plus, but on the Star part. That's what we have here. In the States, it might be Hulu, but...
No, that's a whole separate thing.
Yeah, but it's different country to country. So I don't know. But we normally use boxofficemojo.com, but the further you go back, the harder it is. So this week we've got some help from thenumbers.com, where it shows that it made a worldwide box office of $817,400,878 in 1996, which I tried to find the inflation for that, which I couldn't. I don't know how. I thought that I did, but I must have looked up the wrong thing. But anyway, that wasn't that long ago, and $800 million worldwide is still a ridiculous amount of money. And that is nearly 30 years ago, so it would have been, I don't know, more, let's say, or less. I don't know how it works.
I have no idea.
We were talking about this just before we started recording, and I thought it would be more, but...
Well, money is always inflating, isn't it?
I think it's about the population inflation.
No, I have no idea. It had a budget of $75 million.
Yeah, that really spun me out when I heard that.
Why?
$75 million to make this movie.
Is that not a lot?
Well, Toy Story 3 that we've talked about had a budget of $200 million.
Yeah.
And Captain America Civil War was $250 million, which just goes to show that, like, in talks of inflation, how $75 million back then made this huge blockbuster. And now that's like a middle of the road action movie budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
pretty crazy stuff.
But pretty decent profit for them.
Pretty decent. Incredible
Very
profit.
decent.
Very
yeah.
profitable. This is the alien invasion movie.
Yeah.
So many movies have parodied, copied, paid homage, whatever, referenced this movie in some form or another. I think the first thing I ever saw of this movie wasn't in this movie. I think it was in... Shit, I can't remember. But there was another movie with a scene where somebody gets up against the window like that.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I ever saw of this movie, and that was years later. And, yeah, that's quite an infamous scene. It's hard to talk about spoilers with this because it's such a popular movie. But...
surely everyone's seen it. And if they haven't, like you say, it is an alien invasion movie, so you can kind of guess what happens.
Yeah. We sort of, if you've listened to our 2010 episodes and our 2016 episodes, this one is going to be a little bit different. We'll try to keep this one a bit shorter and focus more on the production, as opposed to the story and plot, which we will touch on, but it's mostly about the production and the marketing and stuff. And, you know, as we go on, we're learning how to talk about that. So if you're listening to this in the future and, you know, in a couple of years and you're like, oh, this is just how they always do it, or that's weird. They did this for these couple of episodes. Sorry.
Yeah. We might change again, or I don't know. We're still learning.
Yeah, but at the moment, we're just doing whatever, and we'll figure it out. So get over it. Anyway, back to the box office. Opening weekend of $50 million, which was 16.4% of its total gross. So that's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. It says inflation adjustment domestic box office would be 635 million. So it is less.
How does that work?
I have no idea. That's so strange.
We've got to educate ourselves on inflation.
I know. I totally thought it was the other way around.
You'd think inflation always means to inflate, so bigger, more.
Yeah.
So why would they call it inflation if sometimes it can go down?
I have no idea. I honestly, well, we started this podcast to be, we're not film students or aficionados or film critics or anything like that. We're two ordinary people who love movies, and we started this podcast in a way or an attempt to just share what we think of movies with other people who probably are like-minded and have the same amount of knowledge, because you watch a lot of videos and podcasts from people who are in the industry or industry adjacent, and they know what they're talking about with a lot of this stuff, but we don't. So I think that it might be part of our charm that we just
don't know everything.
I would say we don't know anything. Anyway, it made a shit ton of money at the box office. For some reason, they waited 20 years to make another one, which I haven't seen. Have you?
No, I haven't seen it.
Nope. It looks like crap.
Yeah.
It looks like it doesn't even look like a sequel. It looks like a movie.
They just tried again.
Yeah. It just looks like a movie that's trying to do Independence Day again.
Yeah.
But bigger and better, but it just doesn't look cool.
No.
Whereas everything about this movie, to me, I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
I'm pretty sure they got Jeff Goldblum back for the second one, but I don't know if they got any of the others back.
I do know a few things because it came out in 2016, back when I was like all hip and cool and up with what was going on, and Will Smith was going to return, because I was kind of keen on it until I saw the trailers, but they wouldn't pay him what he wanted, and so they wrote it in that he died in between movies testing a modified aircraft, like a mix between human technology and the alien technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, spoilers, I guess, that he dies after this movie, but anyway, we have gotten way off track here. Independence Day came out. Still doesn't tell me here. I might have been July 8th. Came out July 8th. So probably, like just after the July 4th weekend. Because it's a long weekend. And made...
That's weird.
What do you mean?
You think they would have released it on July 4th?
Nobody would have gone to the cinemas.
I suppose.
Everyone's out celebrating.
Yeah, true.
Well, you know how our national holiday is here, wherever we live. People go crazy for that. It's the big thing for the entire month, and then it's this huge, big national event, and then it's just whatever after that. I imagine it's the same in the States. It's just, leading up, like the 3 days before it, but, leading up to it's like, oh yeah, July 4th, and it's this big thing, and then after it, it's like, all right, clean up, let's go back to work.
Yeah.
And life goes on. Anyway, so yeah, it made a ridiculous amount of money, which is a good thing. I like this movie.
Yeah,
I think that, that is no surprise.
Yeah.
This movie is awesome. It was marketed very well. It did things that, as far as I can tell, like, I was born 8 months before this movie came out. So I can't tell you what it was like during that time. You weren't even born yet.
No.
So we can't tell you what it was like then, but
this sort of thing hadn't really been done before? Not in the way that it was.
Not for this genre or this subgenre, like alien invasion movies.
Yeah.
There was The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is referenced. They show it on a TV screen I guess sort of like The Thing, but that bombed at the box office, and it's a very different kind of alien invasion movie.
I think because this one is so centered around like July 4th and Independence Day that it was a big hit, especially in America.
Well, fun fact that I stole from another YouTube channel. Shout out to Cinefix. um, a bunch of these are actually stolen from them, but they just had little specific things which was easy to latch onto. The name Independence Day, the studio really liked the movie, like they really wanted it, and they thought that this was going to be a big hit because it's so American, and so they didn't like the title Independence Day because, you know, it's a very American thing, and this is a very American movie, but it's supposed to be about like the global side of things. But the speech Bill Pullman does, that was added late in the day, and they sent that to production, and they were like, well, I mean, what are you going to call it now if not Independence Day? But I think that's why ID4 is used for a lot of things, because it's a good search term, and it's not like, it's not, offensive isn't the right word. It's not
Not so
off-putting.
restrictive.
Yeah, it's not off-putting to foreigners,
Yeah.
you know.
What is ID for?
I think it means Independence Day the 4th. Because
Oh,
it's the
like
4th of July.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dumb. Like, it's real dumb.
That makes it sound like it's the fourth movie.
Yeah, right? It's like Fast and Furious 4.
Yeah, Independence Day 4,
Yeah.
ID 4.
You watch it and you're like, oh, I can't wait to go back and see the first 3 movies and see how all these characters interacted leading up until now.
Yeah.
Nope. That would be pretty crazy if, you know, because these are very, well, the main characters are pretty, like, you get enough backstory to know that they've done a lot of stuff in the past, and that they have history, a lot of them, and it would be pretty crazy if there was 3 movies before this about these characters on their Independence Day, and, like, this is what they were doing this year, and then the 4th one is, alien invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get to the cast, and that might explain why, one of the reasons why this movie was so successful. Captain Stephen Hiller, played by Will Smith, who's been in everyone's
Everything.
lives forever. He's,
Good YouTube channel.
yeah. Oh, that's hot. Obviously, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Men in Black, I Am Legend, Concussion. He was in... I don't know why I added Concussion in there and all of his big hits. It just popped into my head.
Pursuit
Aladdin,
of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness, 8 pounds or 7 pounds or whatever it's called.
7 pounds.
7 pounds. He just won the Oscar for King Richard. He plays Richard, but I think the movie's called King Richard. I don't know. I haven't seen it. A billion other things.
Yeah,
Just
very
everything you can
popular.
think of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, it's Will Smith. Especially right now for reasons you all know. Bill Pullman, most recently seen in The Sinner. He came back for the sequel to this, as far as I know.
Yep.
He plays the President Thomas J. Whitmore. Jeff Goldblum is David Levinson. What's that look on your face? Yes, it's Jeff Goldblum.
When you said Jeff Goldblum, I went,
Yeah, I bet. Obviously, most famously known for Jurassic Park and The Fly. He was in the Grand Budapest Hotel. He was in Thor Ragnarok. He was the Grandmaster.
Yeah.
He's been around. Like another person who's just everywhere.
Yeah.
I think Bill Pullman, I can't off the top of my head think of a lot of his other acting credits, but he's somebody that I've seen in a million things.
Other than Independence Day and the Sinner, I can't really think of anything that I've seen him in.
Well, let me tell ya. Jeez, a lot of just random crap lately.
Well, he's
he
getting
was in
old.
American Ultra.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't remember what he was in that movie. Was he the higher up guy? Jeez, he's just been in a bunch of random stuff. Like really weird, just all over the place sort of stuff. I like it. I think that's good, but I don't recognize a lot of this.
He's a very odd guy.
Oh yeah, he's like the weirdest man I've ever seen. Well, that explains why I can't think of most of the stuff he's been in. I don't recognize most of it, which is strange. Like normally it's somebody will do a few big movies and then they'll just do, and sort of what like he's done, but they'll just sort of coast. But it seems like he's doing a lot of work, but it's a lot of like low budget
Yeah.
stuff, which I mean,
That's what he's interested
he's
in.
a talented actor, so it's his choice. And
Yeah.
because of this, he's super famous, household name pretty much for probably nobody younger than us,
Yeah, no.
and not even people around us, but for weirdos like us. Yeah. Then Mary McDonnell as Marilyn Whitmore. She must have been famous at the time. I don't know her from anything else. Don't
No, me
recognize
neither.
her. Yeah, Judd Hirsch. Again, I recognize him, but don't recognize. Like he was pretty old in that, so he's just been another one of those guys who's just been in a bunch of stuff. Just a working actor, I would say. Like you've got your Will Smiths and your Jeff Goldblums who are just super famous, mega stars, and then a lot of these other people are just like working actors. They're just in it.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary McDonnell was in Donnie Darko as Rose Darko, probably the mum, because that was 2001.
Yeah.
So there you go. Robert Loggia as General William Gray. I should have said Judd Hirsch was Julius Levinson. I'll get more into these. There's just a couple more. Randy Quaid was Russell Case.
Love that guy.
Yeah, he's great. And that's... We'll Get Murdered If We Don't Mention It. Brent Spiner played Dr. Brackish Oaken. Brent Spiner is most famous for playing Data, or Data, however you say it, in Star Trek, The Next Generation, and a bunch of other stuff. I don't know. I'm not a Star Trek guy. So that's just a bunch of...
That's like the main people.
Some of them. This is a very big cast.
Yeah.
And this is... I don't know how to put it. Because this movie came out... This is a pre-9/11 destruction... disaster movie, right? For some reason, you'd think that movies that came out after that would be a lot more like this, and that this would be a lot more mean-spirited, like a lot more outlandish and crazy, because, nothing like this had ever happened on American soil before. And, then 9/11 comes along 5 years later, and that a lot of what you see in this movie very much reflects stuff I've seen, at least in documentaries and news and stuff like that about 9/11. The imagery and the way that people say, we came together. But a lot of disaster movies since this one have been very mean-spirited, I feel. Like it's all taken up to another level, and people get just cut down when they make a mistake, as opposed to this where a lot of the main cast survive and everyone's like mates at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is good about this movie. You really feel the togetherness. Like there are some awkward moments, but there's nobody's better than anybody else other than the people who are actually just bad people.
Yeah.
But there's no one person who's like, I'm the coolest. Because I remembered it as Will Smith. It was like the Will Smith show, but it's not like that at all.
No, it's not.
Should we do just a quick non-spoiler thing for anybody who probably hasn't seen it? But it doesn't really matter with this, but we will go through the motions with the spoiler stuff. So I'll let you do it.
So basically this movie is about an alien invasion. And America has to come together to beat the aliens.
Yeah.
Pretty much the blurb of the movie.
It is the question of whether or not we are alone in the universe has just been answered. And the poster is a spaceship over the Earth or Washington. I think it's over the Earth. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well you pretty much summed it up, especially because it's supposed to be the world, but it is America.
Yeah.
This is
its main focus is in America.
Yeah. This is like Team America, but not a parody. So yeah, that's the non-spoilers. That's all you need to know. Everything we've talked about so far. We're going to do spoilers now. We always do the same thing for it. if you're driving or whatever, this is your heads up. 3, 2, 1. We're in spoilers now. It's spoiler time.
This movie is very mid-90s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a time capsule of the 90s. Of all the shots of, like, New York and, like, the kids playing basketball and the cars and the cop that he pulls up and then all the cars slam in and then a truck hits his car and... Yeah, it's very...
And the dramatic flashes in
I
cut
love
scenes
them.
where it's like... Doo-doo, or whatever sound it makes, and it's like
a
flash and then the next...
It's like a...
Yeah, like that.
And it's like a flash of light.
And then it cuts to the next scene, which only happens those few times in the beginning and then never happens again.
I think because it's all like... This movie is 3... It's set over 3 days... And it's 3, well, I was going to say it's 3 parts, but yeah, it's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And they're all very distinct from one another. You know, the build up to like, we see the spaceship coming, and then the people, what is it called, SETI? SETI? I think it doesn't really matter, we only see him once. But, you know, they have their little thing where the young guy hears it, then he gets to his boss who hits his head and comes out and they have an argument. And, you know, like every little character has a little quirk, which makes it feel really real, I think. You know, and then we just like build up, we meet the characters. And what I really like about this movie, it goes for 2.5 hours, but it moves. You know, it's like, here's this person. Okay, we've shown you just enough to get an idea of these are the characters, this is their dynamic, this is their situation, boom, moving on. These characters are here, what are they doing? Oh, that's what's going on with that guy, boom, moving on.
Yeah.
And then we see those main characters and like their side characters and stuff, if they live or not, all, it's like Stranger Things. You know, they all start off separate, but then they twist and twist and twist and come together to meet in the middle, I feel.
Yeah.
It's really well done that way.
Yeah. You don't feel like this movie's dragging on and on and on. I think because there is so many characters to follow, but most of the time you don't feel like it's too much. I felt like the love story between Jeff Goldblum and his girlfriend, or ex-wife, didn't need to be there because we already had a love story with Will Smith and his girlfriend and son.
Yeah, I suppose, but it wasn't really a love story between them.
Well, they reconnected and stuff, but you could have just had them be like best friends, or he could have even been her older brother, or...
You reckon?
Yeah, it didn't need to be another love.
But there needs to be a connection there, and there needs to be conflict, I feel.
Well, that's why I think you could make it like her annoying older brother or something, who thinks he knows everything, and then eventually she does need his help. Like, she's the younger sister, and, you know, maybe he's always tried to control, like, or help what she does. And so she took that job to prove that she can do things on her own, and then eventually he comes and helps.
Yeah, but I feel like that's a lot more petty than the real motivation that they had. Well, it was Margaret Collin playing Constance Spano, or Spano, by the way. That's his ex-wife.
Yeah.
I feel like them still being in love with each other, and that's very apparent, but she's very ambitious and wanted to do something for the world and change people's lives and do something meaningful. And he wasn't ambitious, but I think it's... And a lot of this is subtext. That's what I really like, is these characters don't come out and go, here's why I feel like this. You know, like the dad character, Judd Hirsch, he's a little bit more overt, but it works because people's parents usually are like that. You know, when they get older, parents and grandparents, they are just like, oh, God, just get it over with. You guys are clearly in love. Just make it work. And they're like, oh, but... she's ambitious and I'm not, and I just wanted to be a cable repair guy, even though I look like Jeff fucking Goldblum and I'm a super genius. Like, That's another thing. One thing that kind of takes me out, and this does it less so than like Barry did, or The Choice, where everyone is super good looking, and it's like, especially with Buried, where he was a truck driver, and I'm like, Ryan Reynolds would never be a truck driver. Nobody who looks like that would ever have so little options. But yeah, sorry.
Everyone in this movie looks amazing.
Oh yeah, there's not a single. Even the people who aren't that good looking are still like on like a Hollywood scale. Like they would be normal. They're normal looking to us. So compared to Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum, and well, they're the two probably like best looking guys. There's not a lot of female action in this movie, I'll say, which isn't like surprising. But yeah, I was just gonna say Will Smith's girlfriend is a stripper, but it's never demeaning.
No.
You know, especially because she's a black character. It's never like, oh, of course she'd be a stripper. It's just, you know, there's even a scene that addresses it where they save the first lady and she's like, I like doing this job. It's not terrible and I make a lot of money and I can provide for my kid. And that's that house that they're in at the start with where Will Smith's there. I always forgot. I thought that was his house. That's her house.
Yeah.
And look, maybe in the 90s things were different, but if a single parent could own or rent a house like that with a kid, oh my God, doesn't matter what they're doing, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a nice house in a nice neighborhood.
And that's what she pretty much says. It's like she likes doing her job and
Yeah.
provide for her son.
Yeah. You know,
That's all that matters, really.
you know what it is? It's like how it should always be. It's all show, don't tell. They show the nice house. They establish that she is pretty much doing that on her own, and Will Smith is just there. I mean, maybe it's their house together, but the way they were talking, they don't live together, only when he's on holidays and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
because
that's
they weren't fully official yet.
yeah, but then they get married, and he said we should have done this a long time ago, which tells me that they've been together for a long time, but he's been holding it back.
Yeah.
You know, and he's a captain in, I thought the Air Force, but it says he's in the Marines. What is going on, U.S. military? Why do the Marines have fighter pilots? Wouldn't that be the Air Force? That doesn't matter.
make any sense.
Anyway, we're getting bogged down in all the story beats. I think we should talk about the meat and potatoes, meaning the visual effects. Not many stunts in this movie. You know, there's not a lot of like a person doing something.
No,
There's
no
some
jumping
people,
out of planes or anything.
yeah, there's some of like people like jumping out of the way of cars and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff, but there's no big stunts where it's just a person doing anything. It's all visual effects.
Yeah.
And the most iconic shot of this movie is the White House being blown up by the alien beam. And holy crap, that's like one of the best visual effects put to film that I have ever seen. That's just my opinion. That's how I feel. Everybody else who says otherwise is wrong, but that's just how I feel about it.
So yeah, that was obviously a model, a very detailed
Yes.
model of the White House. They spent ages working on it, and then they say it all gets blown up in like a few seconds.
Yeah.
But it was that scene was shot with 9 different cameras, and they slowed it down to 12 times slower than what and the normal frame rate is. Because when they push the button and it explodes, and the model, you know, explodes, it's like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But in the movie, it's long. And is it in slow motion?
I don't think it's in slow motion, like not like slow motion, but like I think it is slowed down, and also they blow it up in stages, I think. So the way it looks in the movie is the beam comes down, hits it, and it explodes outwards. But I think the way it works is it like blows up from the back to the front, so that what we see looks like it's exploding from the middle, but it's coming forward to blow outwards. Because if you just blow it up because it's so small, like you were saying, it would just be over in a second, and that shot would just be crap.
Yeah.
But that miniature is like, we say miniature,
Yeah, but it's big.
It's
It's like
bigger than a person, I'd say.
Yeah, well, they had it on like stilts.
Mm.
Like it was raised off the ground because they had trees and stuff as well, but probably about the same height as a person or a bit bigger.
That's pretty bloody big.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a miniature. And a lot of the stuff in Los Angeles was miniatures. I mean, any scene, any shot of an explosion happening in a city was a miniature.
Yeah.
Uh,
And all the explosions were real, or the fire explosions
Yep.
were real, but obviously, yeah, they used models and everything, miniatures. But I don't, other than maybe a couple times, I was never like, oh yeah, that looks like a miniature. It looked pretty good, pretty realistic.
I thought there was 2 times where I was like, that's clearly, and obviously I know that they're all miniatures because I've like separately watched stuff about this movie and it's very famous for it. But yeah, the shot, just one of the fireball coming through, I think Los Angeles
Yeah.
or New York.
When they're leaving on the plane, or not that time?
No, just one of the shots of the fire coming through there. It was just a shot that the angle it was from, you can kind of clearly see that those aren't real buildings.
Yeah.
And the shot of when they launched the nuke at the one over Houston, and you see the cars flying by and the tanker is there. I was like, that
Yeah.
looks like miniatures and stuff, but I didn't think it looked bad.
No.
The amount of practical effects in this movie is just astounding, and the amount of visual effects, computer CGI is crazy for 1996. Like they had all the dog fights and stuff, the plane fights,
Yeah.
the two. They used to have to hand animate it, which would take 4 or 5 days, and the way they did, and I don't know diddly squat about how this works. It's just like magic to me. But basically they shortened it with however they did it to 1 to 2 days or 24 hours, or sometimes in like 12 hours they would have a whole thing composited and sorry to any people who know about any of this stuff or visual effects artists themselves. I'm so sorry that we are butchering your stuff, but it's easy to talk about practical stuff because it's easy to understand that. And it's, as somebody who used to very much discount CGI, I apologize, and I've completely changed my opinion on it now because this movie would not exist without CGI. Not just in the obvious stuff, but like some of the most compelling scenes, there's a lot of CGI involved, and I never knew that years ago.
Yeah, for its time, this movie is done really well, and I remember watching the behind the scenes of them doing the visual effects and everything, and on those tiny little box computers, and I just think, how did anything get done, and how did they get that result on those damn computers?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
They were pioneers, Well, not even pioneers. They were like they were because, people, when computers were first invented, were doing this stuff, but they just found new ways to innovate and make things better. And there's a very unfair comparison made between practical effects and visual effects because today, I shouldn't say visual effects, CGI. CGI today, you watch a Marvel movie, and I love me some Marvel, and not just them, but, they're probably one of the best examples. Most of what you're seeing isn't actually there, or like, I don't know if they use it for Marvel stuff, but with Star Wars, like The Mandalorian, they use what's called the volume, which is like a dome sort of screen thing around on the walls behind the actor, and like the middle bit will be real and everything around them is just fake. Not like CGI. Oh, sorry. Not like green screen. Like they can see it. So it's better. But it's not actually there. But I watched the whole first season of The Mandalorian and I had no idea.
Yeah, it's
That-
crazy what
it's
they
just-
can do.
You know, and that's now where it's so seamless a lot of the time. And there are still faults that happen, but a lot of that is usually time, money, studio interference, usual stuff. But with this, like, this is what happens when the studio gives you full backing and they go for it. And Randy Quaid's character pretty much got a complete overhaul after the movie was released to test audiences, where in the final fight, he was supposed to be upset that he wasn't a part of it, and he stole a missile, strapped it to his biplane that he used for crop dusting, and in that moment decided to kill himself, like when he left, and he flew it up, and it was exactly the same, where he flew up into the thing. Whereas in this, and then test audiences were like, what is that?
Yeah.
And when we were watching it, I was like, why did he keep his plane with him if it never gets used again? It did.
Yeah.
But they changed it, and then they even added in his whole backstory of, like, the alien abduction thing was there, but they added in the military service stuff after.
Yeah.
That's why his beard isn't actually a beard, it's like makeup. You can't really tell, but when it's pointed out, you can see it in the scene where they're like they're asking people their history of flying planes.
Yeah.
And his haircut's different and everything, and then later he just doesn't even have a beard. But you don't question it because and that's the thing. There's a lot of stuff about this movie that I never questioned watching it.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, well, neither did I. Thank you,
Yeah.
Cinefix. But one thing I did pick up on was, I'll get back to that in a sec. One thing I did pick up on was the dog fights. I'm pretty sure that the start of them are identical. The one where Will Smith leads it versus the one where Bill Pullman leads it, I think are identical with the colours changed. But if you don't know, they've done their job.
Yeah.
They've successfully done it. But yeah, anyway, Randy Quaid. So they added in him flying a jet later and all that stuff in. It was all completely changed. And I imagine that's why it's only one of his kids that comes down and hears him talk over the radio. I think that was all added in because unless he was talking, I don't know what was changed there, but the shot of his jet hitting the beam, right? I don't know if this was changed after they changed how he did it or if this was always it, but that explosion was the explosion of the Empire State Building when they shoot New York. They took that explosion
And added it.
copied it and flipped it upside down and put it on the spaceship.
Wow.
Seamless.
Yeah.
It looked so good.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like they said, when doing practical or visual effects or anything, they thought of the easiest, most simplest way to do it first. And if that didn't work, then they would try something else and try something else. But, I mean, yeah, if you can take an explosion that already happened and add it to another explosion that's happening, then it works. I had no
Right.
idea.
Yeah, neither did I.
Simple.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, was it Occam's razor? The simplest solution is often the right one. Go for it.
Good on them.
Absolutely. I mean, why make the work harder for yourself when you can just find
Use,
and
what you already have.
replace, you know?
Yeah.
That's all I had to say about that. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
We should have talked about the director, Roland Emmerich, earlier. Hey, he has the same birthday as me. Exactly 40 years before.
Nice.
So, I'll go back to Independence Day and I'll go from there, and stop me if you've sent a theme. Before this, he did Stargate, I will say, with Kurt Russell and, God, what's his name? He was Ultron. James Spader. Yeah, those two guys. And then while him and I think Dean Devlin was also, like, they wrote and directed it together, or he directed it but they wrote it together and both I think produced it, I don't know, but he came up with the idea for Independence Day during the press tour for Stargate. Somebody asked him about why he makes movies about alien stuff if he doesn't believe in it, and he said it's really interesting, and they got to talking about what would you do if you woke up and there was a 15-mile, as is in this movie, a 15-mile spaceship over your city.
Yeah.
And then he said, I think I just got the idea for our next movie, which is pretty cool. So yeah, he did Independence Day, then Godzilla, The Patriot, that one's a bit different, The Day After Tomorrow, 10,000 BC, 2012, Anonymous, was a TV movie after that, White House Down, Stonewall, I've never heard of that, Independence Day Resurgence, Midway, and Moonfall.
It's all very similar.
Well, Independence Day is a disaster movie. Godzilla, sort of. It's a monster disaster movie. The Patriot's different. I didn't know that. Good on him. The Day After Tomorrow is a disaster movie. He has a real thing for wrecking New York. Because you see in a few of those movies I was just talking about, the shots of the Statue of Liberty just knocked over or frozen, or like not just in this movie but in all of his movies. He's very keen on destroying things. Yeah, he's like the destruction guy. And honestly, I didn't know that he directed a lot of those. I don't think there's many bad movies in there. Off the top of my head, I haven't seen Moonfall, but I've heard it's a bit much. But it's pretty crazy to go back and watch this, and you see the explosions, and you see all that, and it kind of feels tame compared to what we see today.
Yeah.
Like, it's cities being blown up where, like, now you can see, like, planets being just, well, actually, before this came out. But, I don't know, it just feels so tame with, I think it's the tone.
But that's what makes it more believable and easy to watch, because it's not so grand and extreme.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
is, but
Yeah.
not so over the top.
I think that most people have a pretty accurate response in the movie to the events of the movie. Like, it's pretty somber at moments, and when it's not, it's usually like, well, that person's a bad person. Like, Albert Zabinski, whatever his name is, the guy, the Secretary of Defense, who Albert Nimzicki, played by James Rebhorn or Reborn, I don't know how to say it. He's the guy who's like sort of mocks the president and says, "Oh, we should do this and we should do that," and he hides the fact that Area 51 exists and that they have an alien spacecraft and dead aliens, and they know that all of this is real, but because somehow the president in this world has no idea. How the president could not know is the only part that I was like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, how do you get around that?
Yeah, because if I became president, if I became the supreme ruler, you know, the leader of the free world, as they say about the US president, my first, like, 6 questions would be about all the weird shit, all the conspiracy theories. And
definitely.
number 1 on that list is, take me to Area 51, please, and thank you, and
Show me the aliens.
show me the aliens, show me everything that's going on there. I want to know, because there is a US Air Force base out in Nevada, I think it's Nevada, out in the desert, in one of those deserts, where you can't get close because they stop you. I'd be like, take me there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and maybe that's why we're supposed to sympathize with President Whitmore, Bill Pullman's character, because he's not that kind of guy. He's more invested in doing real stuff, although we don't see a lot of his policies. But yeah, I thought that this movie was going to be like the Will Smith show, and that's how I remembered it.
Yeah, me too.
But he's not even the main character.
No, it's hard to tell who the main character is. It's a bunch of people.
Well, I think it's a good ensemble movie.
Yeah, like obviously the president, because
But
he's the one who makes most of the decisions. But even then, you don't feel like he's the guy.
I'd almost argue it was Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah,
But
And I like that the president doesn't act like he is, the one who has to make all the decisions, and it's his word. He listens to David, and he listens to, all the other people when they tell him stuff that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And makes himself, a part of them, and doesn't try to have like this
authoritarian.
Yeah.
But another good thing on what you were saying, he also still takes responsibility, because at the end of the day he is the one to make the choice, but he takes on the counsel of others, which is it's a good point. He feels a lot like the focal point of the movie, but it's pretty evenly split, I feel, between him, Jeff Goldblum, and Will Smith.
Yeah. And then after that, like Russell.
Who was Russell?
The crazy alien abduction guy.
Oh, yeah, he's not anywhere near the main character.
No, but...
Oh, sorry, you mean like after...
After them, then it's like him, and... Because he's one of the people that come back to help.
So it's like the president and his assistant, Connie. We should stick to titles instead of... So I've been doing it mostly with actors' names as well. But so there's the president with Connie and Nimziki, or whatever his name is, and the General Grey, right? So there's like them, and then there's David and his dad and his boss, who is played by Harvey Fierstein, playing Marty Gilbert, who is only in it for a few scenes, but...
Yeah, he dies.
Sounds like he smokes 10 packs a day. Like, not even trying to make fun of the guy. I just don't know why they would get somebody like that.
He has such a unique voice.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
David, why did I just send my mother to Atlanta? David, talk to me.
Hear me tell you?
And then there's, his dad and his boss, and then...
Then there's...
Will Smith.
Yeah, what's his character's name?
Steven.
Steven, yeah.
It's hard not to just say Will Smith.
Yeah. And then his girlfriend and...
Jasmine. And her son, not his, her son Dylan.
Dylan, yeah.
And then her friend Tiffany.
Yeah.
Oh, and then with the president, there's also his daughter, and then his wife, the first lady, is representing stuff to do with him over in Los Angeles. So then there's Case, Randy Quaid's character, and
Russell.
his 3 kids. Russell, that's it, Russell and his 3 kids. And then...
That's pretty much it.
Oh, and then when we get to Area 51, there's the
there's all
commander
those people.
and Dr. Oken.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's a long list of characters who... I think only 3 of those people I said don't survive to the end.
Yeah.
Oh, no, 4. 4 of those characters out of like the 12 or whatever we said don't survive till the end. And a lot of people die. Like... That's what we were talking about before with the tone. Oh, Steve's mate, Jimmy.
Jimmy, yeah.
Yeah, played by Harry Connick Jr., who got an "and" credit. So the way I understand it is when there's the credits in the movie, or opening or ending credits, it starts off with the most important people and rounds out, and then you'll get with credits and credits, so it'd be like Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, blah, 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 down the list, and then with like Judd Hirsch, I can't remember who it was, but with some, and Harry Connick Jr., and it's meant to be like the most important people, most important main characters at the start, and then even if they were only in it for a bit, the biggest stars at the end.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about this guy. I think he's just a singer.
Yeah, I don't know.
We must sound so young to some people, but I'm like, he was a crap character. Like, Washington, D.C., New York, Los Angeles got wiped out in a matter of seconds. Not to mention, I think they said it was 30 cities, the 30 largest cities in the world the spaceships went over.
Yeah.
Annihilated in a second, in a heartbeat. And the next day, he's like cracking jokes.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, hold me, Will Smith. And he's like dancing and singing when they go into the planes.
Yeah.
All of that was real weird.
He was very, very jokey and
Yeah.
lighthearted. Yeah.
He had a good bit when they're flying, and he does his little like reverend speech, and that felt like he's taking it seriously, but he's trying to keep everyone lighthearted. But when they're in the mission briefing and he's cracking jokes, and Will Smith's character, who's not really a Will Smith character, like he's very serious, except for when he's in battle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when it's time to be serious, he's very serious.
Yeah,
and
he
I
takes
think that's
his job very
yeah.
seriously.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I think it's good that he wasn't the guy who was like, he wasn't the comic
joke,
relief.
yeah.
He was a pretty serious guy who you could tell was like over the course of the movie just being worn down by pretty much everyone he knew and worked with is dead by the end of it. And at one point he thinks that his girlfriend and soon-to-be stepson are also dead.
Yeah.
And he's just like, there's just a shot of him sitting there holding himself just sad. And I think you miss out on a lot of that like emotion in a lot of modern movies where characters get to be emotional and not just stoic. Like, and no offense to him, but a lot of like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's characters are just there to be cool and have like a cool tragic backstory or a cool tragic thing happen to them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
still be gruff and, you know, it's not really going to faze me even if I'm messed up by it. It's fine because I'm cool guy. And that's great some of the time.
Yeah.
But in this movie, like, you meet Jeff Goldblum and his dad and there's no, like, awkwardness.
They have a really good on-screen relationship.
Yeah, like he gives his dad a kiss on the cheek when he leaves him. And I was like, whoa. Like, not in like a, ooh, whoa. Like, whoa. You don't see that kind of father-son relationship depicted a lot. And I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah,
was.
and everybody is so, they come together and everybody's so, they unite. And it's just really good. It's hard to talk about this movie because, like, I know I might say that, but I'm just non-stop. But it's like, I'm just desperately trying to think of things to talk about because it's just, there's not really many super obvious faults to this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say that scene where Will Smith, his plane has crashed and he's coming down with the parachute on, and when he lands on the ground and nearly breaks his legs. I don't know how his legs didn't break.
I don't know if that, I can't imagine that was him, that it had to have been a stunt performer. That's probably one of the only real stunts in this
Yeah,
movie. But
I said there was no one jumping out of planes, but he has to leave his plane, and then the landing.
It just
Was that
crumples.
meant to be hilarious? Or is that how people come out of...
well, I always thought they
Parachutes.
came out in their seats.
I suppose not always.
Depends on the, maybe if this was the Air Force, not the bloody Marines flying around. No, I don't know.
And then after that, he goes to the alien spaceship and just punches the
Yeah.
alien in the head.
It comes out in this horrible looking thing and he just one punches it.
Not phased at all.
Yeah.
Just punch that alien.
And then welcome to Earth.
Yeah.
I'll put
Ship all banged up? Who's the man? Huh? Who's the man? Wait till I get another plane. I'm lining all your friends up right beside you. Where you at, huh? Huh? Where you at? Welcome to Earth.
Oh, another fun fact, which I have to thank Alan Tsai for it. I've been watching a lot of his shorts on YouTube. The line where he's dragging the alien in his parachute along the desert and he screams, "What's that smell?" after just like whinging for 5 minutes. That was just Will Smith actually screaming that.
Complaining about the smell.
Because nobody told him that when you stir up that sand, it's like decaying brine shrimp or something like that. Or I don't know what it is, but smells really bad. And he's just walking through that for hours. Yeah. The aliens, I think, are all practical. Like the ships obviously aren't, but the aliens themselves,
Yeah, they
all
did.
practical, all puppets
Yep.
and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, there's like when it's you see the legs, there's somebody standing and they hop down into it, like they like puppeteer it. Yeah, and there's like the connects onto people's arms when their arms are waving around, and the bit where the exosuit, not exoskeleton, it looks like an exoskeleton, but it's a suit. There's a bioorganic one, opens up.
Yep.
And it crawls out. They like pushed it.
Yeah.
And I like that whole scene is great. You know, how its arm is moving and you think it's going to grab him, but that's it sliding its hand out of the suit. Because you don't really think about that. That's not its actual body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like sliding out.
It's like a smaller alien, but it uses that when they travel to other planets.
Yeah, because it's a fighter pilot, same as like how it's basically like a mech suit, but it's bioorganic, so it you don't have to come out of it. I think. I mean, I don't really know. It doesn't stop to explain.
No.
You find out that they're like locusts. They go from planet to moons to wherever they can. They kill everything. They take up all the natural resources and then they move on. And I always hear this argument of like, not about this movie, but about aliens, that, if they've mastered space travel, they mustn't be a warring species. And I'm like, get your head out your ass. Look at humanity. Most of our biggest developments in technology happen because of war or crisis.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that alien race that can travel to whatever planet that it wants over however many light years isn't just going to be so devoid of emotion that...
Yeah, of course.
Well, look at any invasion ever, any invasion ever, but also any invasion of a very much more technologically advanced group, you know, so the colonization, or let's just say colonization, of most places on Earth ended with the invaders decimating the native inhabitants. This is no different.
Yeah.
They just come along and go, we're better than you.
Yeah.
You die now. That's as simple as it is. And I really like that. I don't know if there's other stuff that gets explained in the second movie. I don't care. This movie stands on its own, as it should, as any movie should. There's only one thing that I was kind of curious about is the plaque on the moon real? Because I've never heard of that before.
No, me neither.
And I think it's implied that the ship that they have from Roswell, New Mexico, which is a real thing, I believe that it happened, where a spaceship crashed and they found a life form on board and took them back to Area 51. I believe some version of that.
Yeah.
And in this, it's, I believe, like a scouting party. Like they go to planets and go, yep, this is what we're after.
Yeah.
And I think that in this, they went there, their ship crashed, and the other ones must have been like, humans got them, or something like that. I don't know how that technology works.
They abducted Russell.
But did they? See, that's a weird thing.
I think so.
But how did they come down and just abduct this one guy? I think it's supposed to be left up to you if you believe that, but
what I got from it was they either sent one or whatever, and they came and they abducted him, maybe other people over the world, we don't see that, got knowledge from him, you know, about how the Earth is and whatever, then decided based off that, you know, took that information back, then decided based off that, and then came back 10 years later, and he's like, I fucking told you.
True. That's if they left. You say come back 10 years later. I think it was, but following your thing about, like, they were doing it all over the world, I think that they sent lots, and they were, check this out, and then the mothership comes along and splits off all the destroyers.
Yeah, but that's the thing with this movie. It doesn't linger on anything for too long. It explains just enough. It doesn't over-explain anything and doesn't really under-explain. anything.
Yeah, I think you get just enough to get a full picture of what's going on.
And then you can maybe decide.
Yeah. Computer hacking saves the world. Somehow, through magic, David is able to... David is able to hack into their system and upload a virus onto the ship. And then use that ship to go to the mothership, get taken in, somehow no worries.
Yeah.
They are supposed to talk telepathically, so you'd think that they'd notice that there was no one on board. So I don't know. And then they launch the virus or upload the virus somehow and then launch the nuclear bomb into it. And then luckily are able to escape because they give up and they're like, oh, we're going to die.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
The most confusing part is how in that scene they make it seem like the alien is dumb. Like, this is the alien controlling the mothership, but like you say, they don't realize that there's no alien in that ship that it's brought in and that it's humans. And then
I don't
David
think
and
it's...
Steve's...
Sorry, I don't think it's the Queen. I always remembered it... Or the Queen. The leader.
Yeah.
I think it's just a random one that's
It looks
brought
so
them into that
different,
section.
though.
I think that's because we see it so much more than the other ones.
Well, either way, these are supposed to be smart aliens.
Yeah.
And they don't realize there's no alien in that ship and it's humans. But they also don't realize that the ship was from like 50 years ago. And like David and Steve say to each other, do you think they have any idea what's happening right now? And they're like, no, they have no idea. And the alien just looks like, huh? What's going on? Oh, I'm blown up. That was a bit unbelievable.
True, but I think if they had they had an extended sequence there, I think it would have been a bit too much.
Yeah.
I think the way it went, it was a little bit like, what is wrong with these aliens? Like, how have they not figured it out? I always remembered it as being different. I guess I just misremembered it, but I thought that it was the leader and they figured it out, but nope. But it's a trope that's just been copied that many times in other movies where two people stow away up there and then launch an explosion. And in some movies they die and in others they survive.
Somehow in this movie they didn't die.
Well, Will Smith, Will Smith is the greatest captain in the world, fighter pilot in the world.
Even though he's a Marine.
Yeah, but I don't know how it works, man.
And they were completely swallowed by that explosion, burning up.
Yeah.
And did they jump out of the spaceship with their parachutes then? And then
They wouldn't have had parachutes.
that's how they landed, didn't they?
No, the ship
they
was
just-
crashed in the background and then they climbed out of it.
So their ship just crashed from space and
Well-
they step out of the plane and have the most swagger moment ever.
Swagger incarnate.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
don't come out of that with a single scratch.
Well, Jeff Goldblum's shirt was a little bit unbuttoned. I did have a note about him smoking a cigar because he gives his dad grief about smoking cigars, and then he's the only one with cigars for them to take, and it's like a tradition thing. If somebody knows if that's a real tradition, please let us know. But he couldn't handle, Jeff Goldblum, the actor, couldn't handle smoking a cigar because he never had. So he would like sort of half puff on it. Then he would hand it when the shot wasn't on him to a PA, a production assistant, and they would smoke it to keep it lit. Well, I don't know if they'd smoke it, but I think they would.
Yeah.
And then they'd hand it back to him.
Well, he played it off really well.
But if you look at the scenes of him in the ship, he's having a hard time. But then when they're down on the salt flats on the desert, he's like,
He looks very cool smoking that cigar.
yes, I know, you made a lot of very different sort of noises during that scene, watching them two.
Good scene.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot to talk about before the White House explosion. All of them were amazing. No. All of them were amazing, but we forgot to talk about the fact that it was opened up to the press to come watch the filming of that scene so that they could talk about it and hype up the
Nice.
movie.
Yeah.
Marketing. I was talking about before how they wanted Independence Day to be the title and the studio didn't. They wanted it to be that title so that they could have the earlier slot to get in ahead of Mars Attacks, which was another alien invasion movie that came out that year. And Mars Attacks was supposed to come out a month later, but they pushed it. And I look back on that movie fondly, but it's not as good as this. It's very goofy. What else do you say? It's a good movie. The effects were good. The CGI was, for its time, pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
The miniatures, I love miniatures in movies. Oh, mwah, chef's kiss. Very good. I love practical effects. And again, it's an unfair comparison because practical effects have been around since before film because of stage plays and stuff like that. And, just been developed. So, in costumes and stuff. And I know, obviously, it's gotten a million times better, but that's a craft that has been going since storytelling first began. But visual effects on a computer, CGI and all that, is, 70 years old?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose computers, not that old, but since the beginning of film, they have been mucking around with visual effects and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's an unfair comparison. The dolphin setup was good. It's never beats you over the head with it. There's some dolphin statues in her house, in Jasmine's house. She has dolphin earrings. The ring he gets is a dolphin one because she likes dolphins. But it's never like, she doesn't tell some friggin' story about how dolphins saved
her life.
Yeah. I really liked how the ships entered on fire. Like they broke through the atmosphere and they're so big that,
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and like how the president just kept making the wrong decision every single time, right up until the very end when he decided to launch the second missile, and then they were like, oh, good, and they won because of it. But far out.
Yeah.
Just don't evacuate, keep calm.
That's what is confusing. Why would you stay in the area where there is a giant alien ship over? Of course you would leave.
A lot of people did.
Yeah.
But he was saying...
He was saying, just stay in your houses. And, Jasmine goes to work as a stripper.
But she says, I just came here to pick up my check, and I ended up working. What the hell?
Oh, yeah.
I think that was good. And then her friend Tiffany...
joins, yeah. But, obviously you would leave the place that is covered by a giant alien ship that you've never seen before.
I don't know what the light sequence means. When the helicopter goes up and it flashes the lights, I don't know if that's a real thing.
I think it's just like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, but I just don't know if that's a legit thing. You really get the sense of how, this is almost a horror movie when they first attack. None of the aliens even show up. They just launch their attack and it wipes out 100 million people. Probably more than that. But,
even just the ships in general are cool.
Yeah.
They're not goofy at all as some movies make alien ships. This didn't have the traditional lights or that shape with the dome over top. The alien ships... They look like how you would think. Yeah, pretty what you would think they would look like. Obviously, we don't know, but they didn't go too goofy with it.
Yeah, I like that. The speech.
The president's speech.
The president's speech. Oh my God.
Amazing.
That is probably one of the best inspirational speeches I've ever heard. I really like the one in Pacific Rim, but the one in Pacific Rim feels like it's the younger brother of this one.
Yeah.
And it's looking up and it's like, nice. This is just such a good speech. And as people who aren't American, even, when it's talking about Independence Day, it doesn't even matter. You're just like, yes. Yeah. Let's go do this.
He delivered that so well.
Oh, perfect. And I love... He's not the coolest guy in the world. He comes up and he goes to use the thing and he does it wrong the first time and nobody hears it and then...
Tries again
and then, gets all their attention and, then he becomes a warrior president, which you don't see a lot of that. They set it up well. You know, they
Yeah.
say he was a fighter pilot and he was a good one, and
Yeah.
that's how he got famous and on the political landscape and stuff. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think that's pretty much all we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this movie made most of its money overseas, surprisingly.
Mm.
Well, not surprisingly, but I just would have thought it would have made more. I would have thought it would have made more. All that stuff about inflation we were talking about before, I was wrong. I was looking at the worldwide box office and then the domestic adjusted box office. So the
Cut all that out.
all-time domestic. Well, then what I just said won't make sense. All-time domestic box office, like domestic meaning United States, $306,169,255. All-time domestic inflation adjusted box office, $635,197,299. So it's double.
Yeah, okay, that
So
makes more sense.
That makes more sense. So doesn't have the thing, but so that's like $1.6 billion. That's insane.
Yeah.
And if $75 million would be $150 million, then you add on all the marketing. So you're looking at like $200 million. So that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
$800 million back then, right? And then today we're like, oh, that movie made $1 billion. That's so good. I'm like, yeah, but movies back then with less people around. Like 1996, the population of the USA is way small. The population of the world is way smaller. So it made more money than today's blockbusters.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Outstanding. Good job, Independence Day. Okay, I don't know how much of that's going to stay in.
What do you rate this movie?
I rate this cash.
Me too.
Cash money, baby. It's a damn good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much cash, financially,
Yes.
and cash, opinionally.
I think a lot of people try to rag or like to rag on it because the characters aren't like super fleshed out or anything like that. But I think every single character works, every single set piece works, every single visual effect works, every single line of dialogue feels right, other than Harry Connick Jr.'s stuff. But if all we can find is there was one, maybe two characters who seemed a little bit weird sometimes. Like what I was going to say before, I don't know if I did, but Nimziki, in a movie nowadays where he was doing stuff like that, they would have had him get like burnt to death.
Yeah,
or
shot.
Or shot.
The president would have just taken the gun out and shot him right there.
Not even the president. Like, he would have been like, you can't stop me, I'm going to do this. And aliens would have shot him or something like that. You know, the comeuppance would have been so horrible. But in this, he sat down and was part of a Jewish prayer. You know, I just think it's such a nice, comforting in an odd way movie. Like, it ends so happy. For a movie where day one, aliens attack. Day two, most people find out that like everyone they knew is dead. And then day three, they beat the aliens. And they're all like, yo!
Yeah.
Like, the president finds out his wife is dead the day before. Then the next day, he's like, not bad, David, not bad at all. Yeah. And they're like, look at those fireworks. And it's the mothership crashing down. And they're just like,
Done.
it's so cool to be us.
It's pretty convenient that every other country succeeded with taking down the ships as well.
Well, we don't see that, but I suppose it's implied.
Yeah.
And, well, once the mothership blows up,
It's easy.
they don't have their shields. And they know that all they have to do is shoot that giant laser beam and they're done. So, yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I forgot to talk about it before. There's that one British soldier who is holding his gun in his hand and he's holding it, like, he doesn't have it sitting on paper as a paperweight. Like,
He's
he
using
holds
it,
down
yeah.
the paper while he's holding his gun while they're just having a meeting about the aliens. Yeah, just,
That was funny.
yeah. All right. Well, yeah, this has been Independence Day, 1996, part one. Yeah, it is interesting We might talk more about it next week when we compare this and the next movie, which we'll get to in just a minute. That this was 20 years before Captain America Civil War, and the difference between what was a big blockbuster sci-fi action movie then and what's a big blockbuster sci-fi action movie now.
Yeah, very different. Next week is the lowest grossing, which is Bad Moon. We'll talk about that one next week.
Yeah, it is a werewolf movie. I didn't know that. I thought we were going to have two sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took one look at the poster and
Yeah,
it's pretty definitively a
very
werewolf
obviously.
movie. So that'll be cool.
Yep. If you'd like to support us, we have a Patreon. We've only got 2 tiers at the moment, but any small change that, you know...
As at recording, we have 2 tiers. It might be different if you check now.
Yeah, we might change it up a bit. But yeah, any small donation helps us out a lot. So please go and check that out if you want.
Links will be in the description.
Yep. And if you want to follow us on social media, at the moment we've only got Instagram. It is at Cash vs Trash Pod. And our listening apps are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and you can also find us on YouTube. And we will have all the links in the description.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, check us out, please. Like,
Rate,
5-star
review.
rate, subscribe, follow,
Ring the bell.
tell your friends.
Ding the dong.
Sign up to Patreon, please.
Please.
Pretty please. Well, thanks for listening. We hope you come back next week.
For Bad Moon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, werewolf movie. I've never heard of it, so it'll be
I've
good
never
to
seen
do
it.
one. Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Have no knowledge on it. Just
Yep.
go in like completely raw. You know, raw. Because, you know, like every movie we've done, I've at least somewhat heard of.
Yeah, we've
but-
been pretty familiar with it. But this one, we are completely unfamiliar with it.
So that'll be interesting. Come back for 1996 Part 2, Bad Moon. But anyway, this has been the Cash vs. Trash podcast.
Thank you. See ya.